Hey, folks, and welcome to the Typology Podcast, the show in which we explore the mystery of the human personality through the lens of the Enneagram. I'm Anthony Skinner. Before we go any further, I want to introduce the host of our show, Ian Cron. Ian, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, all considering. I got a house full of kids and their dogs and a new office space in which to do our work. And so I'm excited and feeling good about life.
I noticed you're in a new space today, and I see I think what is a Dove Award back there on the shelf. Is that what that is?
Oh, now that's a little embarrassing. I am going to move that. That's apparently my unconscious three-wing doing its work. I think we can...
A little three-wing action.
Yeah, a little three-wing action. Talk about making it look like I want everyone to know I have one of those. Which I do. But anyway, right. But not on the podcast.
And that might be a little foreshadowing for what's to come today. But
yeah.
Hey, before we go any further, we're really excited to let you all know that we are moving to YouTube. We will still continue to podcast on all of our platforms such as Apple and Spotify, but now you can also watch our conversations over on YouTube. Just go to the YouTube and subscribe to Ian's channel, which is YouTube.com/IMCRON. And you can just actually Google Ian Morgan Cron YouTube and it'll pop up as well. So make sure you do that. Super excited about that. And Ian, why don't you let our folks know about our special offer on the IEQ9?
I will, but first, I want to say this. Watching the show is an entirely different experience.
Yeah.
Because, as a therapist, you really can't do therapy over the phone very well because you don't see the body language. You don't see the eyes. You don't see the person stopping to look off into the distance. And I'm just telling you, you pick up on the energy, the body energy of different types. You can see it in the way they sit, the way they think. So you learn so much more about each type by watching the show, actually, than by if you can only do it on Spotify and Apple. Of course, that's fantastic, But when you get opportunity to watch it on YouTube, subscribe to that channel because I'm telling you, it's a whole different experience. I'm thrilled with it.
Totally agree. I think it's going to be really fun and enjoyable and informative for our audience. So
yeah. And now, if you aren't sure of your type, by the way, and you just want a concise, in-depth, information-rich report specific to your type, I want to encourage you to go to ianmorgancron.com/assessment. And if you put in the code EP, like Edward Peter, 2020, you'll get a 20% discount off our IEQ9 assessment. And of course, you could go to my website, Ian Morgan Cron, and you would also see a tab for the IEQ9 assessment.
Fantastic. So make sure y'all check that out. And Ian, do you want to talk about our guest a little bit?
Holy smoke. We just had the most amazing conversation with Molly Fletcher. Molly is a remarkable force of nature. Her CV is amazing. She was the most successful sports agent, I think, of all time. I mean, you look at her list of clients, and it's pretty extraordinary what she's accomplished in life. She is a 3 on the Enneagram. Now, we had her on 7 months ago, and we were uncertain of her type at the time. And we kind of did a typing interview and kind of narrowed it down to a 3 or an 8. And I said, okay, well, look, I can't tell you your type, but I want you to go home and kind of read up on those two, confirm that you're a 3 or an 8. I was pretty sure it was a 3, but, and then come back in 7 months and let's see what you've learned. And this conversation is such an incredible contrast to where we began the journey with her. And she's a great human being. I want to begin with a quote about that I use with 3s that describe their predicament, I think, in a way. It's from Christine Feehan. She says, "The real question is, can you love the real me? Not that image you had of me, but who I really am." That's a 3 question.
That's beautiful.
It's really at the heart of the 3. And in this conversation, you'll hear echoes of that theme running throughout, and she's funny, and it's dynamic, and there's a lot of laughter and a lot of learning to be had. So with no further ado, let's get to our interview with Molly Fletcher. Molly Fletcher, welcome back to Typology.
It's a pleasure to be with both of you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Good to see you.
I've been really looking forward to this podcast. You're the second guest I've had of the many who came on their first episode kind of tentative about what their type was. And then we narrowed it down, I think, to 3 and 8. I think we were kind of bouncing back and forth between 3 and 8. And as is always the case, an Enneagram teacher doesn't ever type another person. Our job is to actually launch somebody on a journey of self-discovery. So what we might say is something like, gosh, go through all 9 types, but when you get to the chapter on 3s and 8s, pay particular attention to see if either of those, because there's some of that energy going on, right? And I think we were kind of leaning into 3 at the end of that episode. And I'm just curious, do you think you're a 3 now, 7 months later?
I do. And I think on the last one, I told you about how I took my laptop to a movie with my kids.
Yes.
Because I was
I forgot about that.
I was roped into bringing them to, I was roped into bringing them to a movie. And I told you guys that because I am always, sort of, I think a clean and clear 3. I told you I took my laptop, and you guys went, you're a 3, you're for sure a 3, you're a 3. So yeah, I've kind of locked in on that lane, man.
So have you had a chance to kind of do a little research on 3s or learn more about 3s?
Yeah, I mean, I have the book, right? The Wisdom of the Enneagram. And so I've read it a few times, particularly the section on 3s. And it's just, I just am such a fan of this kind of work, and I'm such a fan of the Enneagram, just because I think it's just one of the best out there. So yeah, I mean, I've read through it, and this COVID deal has caused me to and required me at some level to learn how to relax. So maybe that was God's way of jamming relaxation into my life for a 3.
Yeah. So tell me, as a 3, how this surreal season of quarantine, how has it been a help and a challenge for you as a 3? You just mentioned one help, but maybe more.
Well, I mean, so I spend, normally 50 to 60 days a year traveling to large events. Somebody asked me that the other day there, how's this COVID deal impacted your business? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I make a living traveling around a large event speaking, flying on airplanes. So, in a matter of about 2 weeks, I watched tons and tons of keynotes get moved and rescheduled and changed, or some went virtual, all that. So that was, interesting, but it's amazing how things work. I mean, late February, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was in Alabama. They live in Michigan, but I live in Atlanta. And so at first, when all these keynotes started pulling off my calendar, I thought, this is such a gift. I mean, this is amazing. Not realizing candidly how long this would last. I thought, this is amazing. I've got all this bandwidth now to completely lean into my mom and drive this force. She's 78 years old, and she wanted to have all the procedures and everything done in Atlanta. So, I think, I don't know if it's the nature of a 3 or what, but to me, it was an unbelievable blessing, because I was able to truly, lean into her for almost 2 months and navigate this whole journey, which ended with a mastectomy. And, it's significant. She's doing great. But that matters to me a lot, being able to sort of give back to her and my dad. So there was so many blessings in it, and I guess I've tried to lean into those. I looked at my husband the other day and I said, I knew you were it, but you're it. Like, we're going to have fun
Mm.
when, you know, these girls are in college and we're together. I mean, we have a lot of fun. And so, I love my family, and I've really enjoyed this time. You know, I mean, 3 teenage daughters, 16, 16, and 17. And it's such, you know, when will I get this kind of time like this? I mean, normally we're racing around to sporting events and extracurricular activity, and I'm on and off of airplanes, you know, 8 to 20 times a month. I mean, you know what I mean? So I guess I've tried to lean into all the gifts. I mean, from a business perspective too, I think the more quickly you adapt and serve your customers, the shorter at some level this may last, right? I think the more you adapt, it may only last 6 months, 8 months, right? I think the less you're able to adapt and serve your customers and meet them wherever they are, the longer you might feel this. So I'm trying to be creative and adapt as much as we can to support our customers in any way we can.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about threes is one of their great powers is they are very adaptable to new environments. Yeah, it's a textbook characteristic of threes. And one of the dangers is if they have a team that works with them who are different types than they are, they can become impatient. It's because they expect the team to function at the same level that they did when things were normal, because the 3 is doing so great. I mean, relatively speaking, you know, and and you're more adaptable. So I'm always telling 3s, you know, be gentle with your team, because they are in a new normal with kids at home and doing things, and they may not be as adaptable as you are.
Boy, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, and for 2 of the girls on my team, they're single with no kids. So, but one has young children, and you know, you when I listen to things, or you see, as much as an owner, we're feeling the financial impacts of COVID, but you're also trying to your point, be gentle on your team and support and serve them in this time. Because it's funny, I heard somebody say, like, early when this was all happening, your people are probably more scared than you. And I remember thinking, wow, interesting. Okay. And it really helped me say, I've got to reassure them that they're okay and we're okay and their jobs are safe, and they may change their roles. We may need to lean into some new things inside of this change, but I love you and we're going to stay together and we're going to get through this together. That was helpful to hear from someone, so that I could try to lean in and support them.
So here you are, you're an achiever, you're a performer, you are adapting to new realities, new environments. My hunch is that you are thinking to yourself, okay, so what does this new reality make possible? What new opportunities does it afford us that we didn't have before? Right. And maybe we were just running on autopilot, doing our thing. And now we've had a great disruption. What new opportunities are out there? And if you really are a 3, you'll know the fastest route to getting to the best new opportunities that are available. Is that what you're seeing happening?
It's amazing that you say that. Yeah. I mean, you know, so we deliver negotiation training. And I would say 60% of the time it's delivered live. And so we've leaned into just really mastering the virtual delivery of that product for people. And that's been fantastic. And I have coaches that deliver that training. Well, my coaches are on the road more than me. They're terrific individuals who deliver and travel and, you know, deliver 15 to 20 programs a month. So all of a sudden, my coaches' worlds came to a screeching halt, and they're brilliant people, and they have tremendous perspective and a ton of bandwidth. And so it was an opportunity to say, wow, how can we lean in together to make this product even better from a virtual perspective? And we're also leaning into building another program together. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I think finding maybe who now has some bandwidth that they didn't maybe have before, and how can you tap into that for the greater good of everybody? We're certainly leaning into, and having the time and the space. I mean, as you know, for me, focus is hard. It's hard for me to focus. I mean, I don't know that I'm diagnosed as ADHD, but I got to tell you, I got to be really close,
Right?
And my mom said, we had you tested, honey. You're not. But I tell you, there's been so many gifts in that. I've got, I'm not running from one thing to the next so much. So I do feel like I'm able to do, as Cal Newport talks about, some deeper work and focus a little bit better, which has been nice. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
So that's been a gift in this.
So today I was looking at the titles of all your books, and I was thinking that if someone told me these titles and asked me what type the author was, I thought to myself, oh, this would not be rocket science. So I just want people to know the names of your books. The Business of Being the Best, Inside the World of Go-Getters and Game Changers. Next book, The 5 Best Tools to Find Your Dream Career. Next title, Fearless at Work, Achieve Your Potential by Transforming Small Moments into Big Outcomes. Okay. And then your latest book, which dropped January of 20, right?
Yeah.
Energy Clock, 3 simple steps to create a life full of energy and live your best every day. Now, if someone just said to me, I'm just going to read you these titles and you tell me what type you think this author is, I got to tell you, I would speculate, I would have put a year's wages on 3. I mean, there are so many buzzwords in here: go-getters, game changers, 5 best tools, fearless, achieve, potential, transforming, energy clock. I mean, it's live your best. These are big 3 themes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Big 3 themes. And, when 3s are healthy, they do some of the things that you're describing, because in part, you're describing some healthy 6 behaviors.
Okay.
For example, thinking about your team, letting them know that we're going to stick this out together, right? That's very healthy 6 behavior. That's caring more. It's caring less about your success and what it's going to do to your business and getting others to support it. Rather, what you're doing is saying, hey, we're a team, we're a family, we're going to get through this. That is all 6-like behavior. An unhealthy 3 would not be doing that stuff, or even an average 3 wouldn't be doing that stuff. So I'm really pleased to hear that. Yeah, no, I was really glad to hear that that's where you were coming from. But I also wonder, because 3s are not naturally self-reflective. 8s aren't, 3s aren't. They don't have nearly as rich an inner dialogue as, let's say, 4s do. 4s, 9s do too, but differently. 3s are very externally focused, that they're dealing with what's outside them less than what's inside of them going on. In their workspace, they're concerned more with surfaces than with substance. Right?
Sure.
So I just want to know, in the last 7 months, if through your Enneagram self-knowledge, you have found yourself beginning to have internal conversations with yourself about your own growth, depth, identity, any of those things.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm constantly, that I struggle with is, learning how to relax. And I mean, it is, I'm just not very good at it. And, so I've tried lots of things, right? I've tried meditating, and, I would love your advice. I'll flip this on you and try to get some, advice here, but it is really, really, I know from all the research I do and the reading I do and the incredible people that I get to talk to on my own podcast that there's so many benefits to it, but I don't know. I just, I have a really hard time doing it. And I'm really, really disciplined. So I've got to figure that out because I do think it would help quiet my mind. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and the other thing, that I find myself saying is I'm not very creative. I'll say that at times. And as I've read through, you know, kind of the Enneagram book, it talks about how healthy threes are really leaning into that creativity. And I reflect on moments in my life where I've had the opportunity to do things that are more, you know, maybe what you would deem as creative, right? And that, you know, we bought a little cottage in northern Michigan and I sort of helped, I decorated that cottage, and normally I would hand that off or not. And I leaned right into it and I had a great time. And so I reflected on that a little bit, to your point. So I think the things that I'm trying to learn how to get better at is to pause. And, you know, one of the gifts of my mom being in town when we were navigating her breast cancer was we would go on a walk every day. I mean, she loved to get out and go for a little bit of a walk, and it was super low key. It wasn't the exercise for me for the day. I tried to get my own workout in so that became something that I could, you know, she walks at a nice pace, but she's 78. And so she's not flying. And that was so good to do. And so my husband and I have been trying to do that every afternoon, go on a walk together. And sometimes it's a struggle for me because I've got all these things I want to do. And really what I should do is park it and go on a walk. And I would say more than half the time I do go on the walk, but I probably should do it 100% of the time.
Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships.
So I'd say a couple of things. I do want to circle back to meditation because it's becoming an increasingly bigger theme. It's a very important practice in my life, and it has been a challenge. Okay. But I want to ask you another question before I hit it.
Okay.
So what would you have to feel if you just stopped doing?
Well, that's such a good question, you know, and I think, I don't know what I would feel. I mean, I don't know what like when I go work out. So for example, I do on this Mega Reformer or when I do yoga, and I do a good job of getting on that mat or getting on that reformer and not, so I find like walking now, sometimes I won't put AirPods in if my husband's not with me, and I'll just walk, and I'll try to not let anything coming in and out of my head and just let it flow, you know?
That's great.
Yep. So I'm trying to be more disciplined about that because my default mindset is learn, grow, get better, listen to a book on tape, whatever. And I'm like, no, just walk with nothing in your ears,
Amen.
Yeah. So
Amen.
I'm trying, and when I do that, I mean, I just find my thoughts flow. I'm doing a better job of that in the morning, trying to, like, when I wake up, just laying there for a little bit. And I find that that's not a designated meditation time, Ian, but I do find that I do have some really clear ideas and thoughts in that window of time on things, or anticipating conversations, a way to navigate a situation. So to answer your question, when I am still, I find that it serves me well. So then the next question would be, well, then do it. Why don't you do it more? Mm-hmm. Right. And I don't know.
So let me go back to my question.
Okay.
I think for most types, I like to ask this of every type. I ask ones, the perfectionists, what if you suddenly stopped trying to improve yourself, others in the world? What feeling would come up for you that perhaps that way of being in the world is masking? So I'm a 4, right? And I'm a therapist. I've had a lot of therapy. By the way, are you in therapy with anybody?
No.
Have you ever been in therapy with anybody?
I haven't. No, but I haven't. No, but I have no judgment on it. I think it's fantastic. And I don't know if this is good or bad or right or wrong, but I have such remarkable relationship with my friends, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my husband. I guess I feel like they know me so well. I guess if I have really big stuff, I go to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I've never put the energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the things you might do, I'm a big believer in therapy, whether you have a problem or not.
Okay.
Right? Just to have someone, a disinterested party, someone who's got no skin in the game with whatever decisions you make, right?
Yeah.
They're just there to help kind of parse your life a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For someone like you, let's say, do you know about on-site workshops?
Well, I mean, I think so, because we deliver them.
Okay.
No, do you mean like on-site workshops, live programming like that, or
no? On-site workshops on-site is actually a place here.
Got it. It's a brand. Okay.
It's run by a guy named Miles Adcox, and they have this thing called the Living Centered Program, and it's a 5-day sort of a deep dive into your heart, into your life.
Okay.
And it'd be one of those things, particularly at this stage in life, where you're like, I want to do some interior work. But I don't quite know where to start. I don't quite know what to do. Maybe this would be a good jump start. I would recommend that you do that. And as I say it to you, I say it to 3s. You know what I mean? I could say it to all types, but
got it. Okay.
It would actually bring you to a grinding halt.
Really? Okay.
So that there's a lot you do there. So it's a full day. Trust me, night and day. Okay. Of work. But what it would do is jumpstart you perhaps on a deeper journey into your interior world. And I would say this to 3s of all kinds, like find a spiritual director, find a therapist, walk into a therapist's office and say, I don't know why I'm here, except I just want to grow.
Okay.
And they would probably go, well, that's interesting. Normally people arrive with a problem. Right. And maybe the problem for you is, I just don't know where to start.
Right.
I
guess I always thought that you went to therapy if something was wrong.
Right. But what if we framed out the idea that you're not knowing because you're not naturally self-reflective about, let's say, matters of, how would I say this? Not matters of the heart, but around feelings. Feelings are, for 3s, are hard to recognize in themselves and in others. It's like they have trouble kind of, it's a little bit like pesto and pasta, they're kind of going through it. You had to try and clean each strand, and then you can put it back in the bowl. And, for me, it's not, I can walk into a therapist's office and come up with 30 things to talk about. They don't have much work to do with me around,
Your therapist, they must be good. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But placing yourself, thank you, Anthony. Placing yourself as a 3 in environments where you have to do inner work.
Okay.
Because the life of a 3 is generally been focused for decades, their lives, on external work.
Yes.
So for you to find weekends of, sort of self-development weekends, and offline, I could recommend some too, but on-site would be a great example. And I can certainly hook you up with Miles Adcox, who runs on-site. And Anthony, you just recently did sort of a self-development week, and it was very meaningful for you, right?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, on-site is so great. The thing that would be helpful, I think, for you, like Ian's saying, as someone who's typically focused outward, it's an opportunity to take a full day or a weekend where you're doing self-awareness work. But one of the great things is you are typically in a group with other people who, like Ian is saying, don't have any skin in the game. They don't have any codependency with you. So they will tell you the truth about yourself in terms of, they will mirror and tell you the truth in terms of what they're observing. And it just gives you an opportunity to see things that you really kind of wouldn't see. So really helpful.
So does it sort of help you see some blind spots?
Yes.
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to be quite honest with you. It's going to get you in touch with perhaps pain and trauma that you didn't realize was actually governing your life from the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I know for a 3, it's like, that does not sound sexy at all. If you say that to me, I'm like, how much does it cost? Do I have to borrow money to do it? That's fine. I'll do it, But, it's going to be about inner work. And I think that's so much of what 3s are challenged to do, to get off the treadmill, especially in our season of life. You're younger than I am, but you're still at that, sort of mid stage, right? And you're thinking to yourself, the questions have to change. The questions have to move, I think, from what can I accomplish? What can I prove? What can I achieve? Who do I have to beat and win? To other questions in that part of life, like, who am I? Which is a big question for 2s, 3s, and 4s. Who am I really? Who am I beyond the brand Molly Fletcher? Who am I beyond my self-presentation as an attractive, athletic, go-getter, game changer, transformative person who nails big outcomes? Who is underneath that? And the irony is, I think, that as you do that kind of internal work, you will change in a way that it's not going to make you less productive, but it's going to make you more human and productive.
Yes.
You'll become less of a, here's a cliche or trope we say in therapy so often that I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but you will become more of a human being than a human doing. And I think especially in the second half of life, that is so important to answer bigger, different questions than you were asking in the first half of life.
Well, the thing I think that's so important too about what you're getting at, Ian, is the reason it's so important to get underneath and find out what you're feeling is because when you find out what your heart is feeling, it informs you of your needs, right? So when you realize, wow, I'm really feeling this and I wasn't aware of it. And then it informs you of it. It allows you to ask for something that you didn't know you needed to ask for before that. So it really informs you in what your heart and your feelings can inform you of something that your mind cannot, Yeah.
Your heart has its own way of thinking.
Yes.
And so it's important to get into conversation with it. I had a lawyer I worked with who was a 3, and he actually had just retired, and he said, I'm a 3. And I said, well, tell me what your life is like now. He had done a lot of work on himself. His name was David. He says, I get up in the morning and I decide I'm going to go out and do a little Daviding. And I said, what does that mean?
That's good.
He said, I became the senior partner of a gigantic law firm. I nearly killed myself doing it. I never really liked it that much, but I felt that was what was going to please my parents if I made a ton of money and they wanted me to be a lawyer, blah, blah. That was the track at that age, in the college I went to. I think he went to Yale or Harvard. And he said, but now I'm just learning about me and about God and about life. And this is going to sound morbid, but it's a great question. And how do I want to die?
Mm-hmm.
Who do I want to be when I die?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a great end of the game. What do I want my eulogy to be?
Mm-hmm.
Because just saying,
Totally.
if your eulogy is a resume, that sucks.
Totally.
Well,
yeah, no, I mean, and I feel like on site, I'd love to look into, and I was fortunate about 3 years ago, I went to Human Performance Institute. Jim Lair has always been somebody I've admired because he, was he's really one of the world-renowned sports psychologists, particularly for tennis, which was my sport. So I always knew his name and looked up to him. And that was where I sort of wrote my life's purpose. I spent a little bit of time, and it was really one of the first times that I really started to understand the difference between fulfillment and achievement.
Ooh, tell me about that.
Good.
Well, it was just, I traditionally was all about achievement. And, I'm not suggesting at all that there's not more work to do there, but what I found was there's a really big difference between those two words. and I've grown now to really despise the word achievement.
Okay, hold on a second. Tell me what the difference is. Define fulfillment versus achievement.
Well, to me, achievement is accomplishing something, but it comes and goes and it ends. And I'll tell a story about that. And to me, fulfillment is things like joy. It's connecting to the things that really matter most in your life. In other words, you can't achieve being the greatest wife in the world. You can't achieve being the greatest mom in the world or the greatest daughter in the world. But what you can do is sort of say, how can I ensure that I'm joyful in the way that I'm navigating this journey and sort of contributing to the lives of these people in a way that matters most. And it was a bit of a, what are you really chasing? A moment for me of getting really clear on that, because as an agent, when I was a sports agent, I watched the chase and I was in the chase. I was chasing, people that are really hard to get in front of and securing them. Right. I mean, it was tons of sort of achievement, if you will.
Right.
So I try to spend time making sure that I'm chasing the right things, making sure that I'm living a life that aligns with the things that matter most to me, that is fulfilling,
right,
that it isn't achieving. Because I know really from my work with Jim that, I mean, I could go on and on about the number of athletes in the world who were number one in the world, married to a supermodel, and totally miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Andre Agassi would be a great example.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of, who talks about in his book, I was sold a bill of goods, right? I was told a lie that winning solves all these problems and makes you happy, and it doesn't,
Yeah. Andre Agassi, when I'm giving lectures or workshops on the Enneagram, he is the story I tell about threes.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here he's got this father.
Yeah.
The quote from the book, I think this is pretty close. He says, "My father could not tell the difference between his love for tennis and his love for me."
Oh, it's awful.
And that is a perfect, and threes hear messages like that explicitly or implicitly, real or perceived. And sometimes the parent will send that message with the best of intentions.
Sure.
So it's not like, this is how I want to screw my kid up. I mean, it's like parents, I tell my kids all the time, when we had you, we were still growing up.
Totally.
And now at 50 something, I'm still growing up, so don't expect perfection from me,
Right.
But in his story, what the message he received, as many threes do, is it's not okay for me to have my own identity and feelings. In other words, I have to take on the identity of the person that the important people in my life want me to become. And I'm not allowed to have my own feelings about what I really want to do in life. Remember he said he wanted to be a soccer player. He never wanted to be a tennis player.
Right. Oh, I know. Well, I know. And I think it's so interesting when you asked him when he was maybe 18, why do you play tennis? Andre would say, because it's what my dad wants me to do. It's because I'm what I'm supposed to do. It's because I'm what I expected to do. And now, I think if you asked him, or later in his career, if you asked him, why do you play tennis? He would say, so that I can make money and provide for these underprivileged kids, in the work that he's done now with Steffi Graf. So to me, he shifted his why. And when he did that, he became more fulfilled. He became more connected to what tennis was for him, which was a platform to give back to underprivileged kids, not a place to make a lot of money or win or any of those things.
But in the middle of his career, he does an advertisement in which he gets out of a Lamborghini.
Yes.
Remember this?
Yes.
And he takes off his glasses and he says, image is everything. And that is about as free a statement, a lacking self-aware free statement as you're ever going to hear.
Yeah.
Is image is everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can see this trajectory in that three's life, that tennis star's life, where I got to do what my dad says and become this persona, because otherwise he won't love me. So I have to achieve and win, because if I don't, he won't love or be proud of me. I'm not allowed to have the identity I want. I have to have the identity he wants me to have, of the achiever and winner. So a lot of times threes, I'm not saying you, oftentimes have parents who see their children as an extension of themselves. And the child's success is a reflection on the parents, right? Talents and success.
Sure. Totally.
And so the kid picks that up in the air, in the atmosphere, in the house, and they're like, my feelings don't matter about what I want to do. My parents or my coaches or my peers or whoever, my teachers, their feelings matter more than mine. And so I'm just going to shape my identity around what it is others want me to achieve at, and then go crush it. Now, as was the case with Agassi, for most threes, they have to hit a big fat wall before they begin to do their inner work. And of course he did with drugs. Yeah,
sure.
Right. Yeah. And that was at the end of his career.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was.
Hey, Typology Tribe, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for helping us bring you what I hope is great content every week. Now, you all know I'm a big proponent of counseling. So whether you feel like something is interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving certain goals, counseling is a great tool to help identify what those blocks are and then work through them. Yet, finding a therapist can sometimes feel intimidating, but not with BetterHelp. BetterHelp offers online counseling at your own time and your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus text and chat with your therapist when it's convenient for you. These are licensed professional counselors who specialize in things like depression, anxiety, stress, relationships, LGBT matters, trauma, and grief. BetterHelp has counselors available worldwide and have over 3,000 U.S. licensed therapists across all 50 states. And get this, if you're not satisfied with your counselor for any reason, you can request a new one at any time at no additional cost. Best of all, it's a truly affordable option. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/typologypodcast. Join over 800,000 people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/typologypodcast, TYPOLOGYPODCAST.
See, now, I would love to ask Andre Agassi, what feeling did you have to feel once you stopped? And I think one of the feelings that threes would feel come up is grief.
When you say when he stopped, meaning stopped playing tennis or stopped doing drugs?
Well, when he hit the wall.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because the gig's up.
Oh, right. What's the bottom? Yeah.
Yeah, like when a three hits the bottom and there's no tamping down the feelings? Like what primary feeling is like sort of hiding behind all this need for achievement?
Yeah.
And I think for threes, it would be grief and shame. And sadness about, like, I can remember a conversation with a three once where I said, you must have loved your mother so much to have abandoned who you really were to become the person she wanted you to become. You must have loved her so much to do that, make that sacrifice. And the tears just came. You know,
because that person had abandoned themselves to live for their mother.
To become the person that, and to achieve and perform and achieve and perform. It's almost like even at 40, mom is gone. And it's like, do I know for sure that you really love me, that you're really proud of me? Or do I have to continue on this journey of making sure? Or, and of course, then threes extend that out to the whole world, not just to their parents. It's like they're doing this game for the whole world.
That's interesting. Is that a question?
I don't know. I'm a therapist. Sometimes I just stop and wait to see if you think it's a question.
There's power in the pause.
Yes, big power.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I actually re-listened to our podcast before this earlier today when I was driving around because I needed to be efficient while I was doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you were doing errands and listening and doing yoga you were also doing yoga in the front seat of the car while you were driving.
And it was interesting because one of the questions you asked me last time is, what were you afraid of, right? Because I talked about wanting to make my parents proud. And, and I said, well, it wasn't that my parents wouldn't love me, because they do. And our relationship is unbelievable. But it's funny. It made me think about, I think probably it was that they would be, and I said this in that conversation, that they would be more proud of my brothers than me. And I think that as I reflected on our conversation, I do think that was, that's something that at some level maybe drove. I think one of my brothers is definitely a 3 too. And I think we both, this morning I'm on the phone with my brother. My dad calls my brother back. My brother merges my dad in. I mean, we're 48 and 52 and 3. We talk to my parents every day. And my dad said, well, I thought I would call you back, Jim. And I said, yeah, Dad, thanks for clarifying, because I know you would never call Jimmy before you'd call me. Like here we are. I mean, we still sort of compete. And so it's at some level it is a humorous, fun nibbling, and it makes my parents feel good because we do show them, I think, so much regard and respect and love. So at some level, I think we're joking, but at some level it is interesting because I think we're both chasing that, making sure our parents are proud of us at some level. Although I think we've settled out on it a little bit. Yeah.
I love what you just said. And I really appreciate the fact that took some vulnerability to share that. And there's no one path toward our becoming who we are, right? It's not like every 3 has the same story, but I think what you just described is a variant of a story that is probably not typical of a 3, but not atypical of a 3, right? It's a variant of the story. It's as though, okay, I know that in your home, competing was a really high value, right? And in tennis and in grades, and you have a 3 brother, and you're the only girl, big dynamic. That's a huge dynamic.
Okay.
And what are you all competing for? Well, at some level, I have to believe, Molly, that it's the approval, the pride, the love. It's, you know what it is? It's like a scarcity mindset in the mind of a child. It's like only so much love and pride.
Yeah, you talked about that.
I need to get a piece of that pie.
Yeah.
It's got to be equal or more. I got to do more or be equal at least to what my brothers are getting. Sure. And that can launch the 3 out on the same journey that Andre Agassi went on, that, I have countless other 3s. And it doesn't make your parents or your family, bad.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
For some people, trauma and bad things happen. That's what launches them.
Yeah.
But we all get launched on a journey in this broken world, and we all adopt broken stories. You know?
And it's interesting too, like when you think about Agassi, or, you know, my dad went to flight school and didn't make it. And then he really wanted my brothers to be pilots. And I think it was a little bit of, you know, they're going to do this, and they're both now pilots, one for Delta, one for UPS. And one was a, you know, fighter pilot. I mean, they've done incredibly well in that and love it. And it's been great for them. And it's interesting because I don't know if he thought, I really don't know if, because I was a woman, I don't know why I was not pegged to take that path either, you know? So I think at some level, they were sort of this prodigy to launch into this pilot space that my dad never, but they never pushed me. It was interesting. And so I think, I don't know if I pushed myself to, you know, at that time in my life, probably to think I'm going to achieve more than them. You know, I think I told that story, or maybe I didn't, but the last time, I did, when I played tennis and I said, I'll beat all of you one day. I think I told that story last time, but so it's just it's an interesting dynamic of how much of a driver was that, for me. And it might've been a significant driver.
And see, these are the kinds of interior conversations that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That can be accelerated at a place like Onsite or with a therapist, right?
Sure.
Because you know what, it's very hard for us. We're not transparent. We're not fishbowls. So we can't look inside of ourselves alone all the time and figure out what's going on. We need the help of a group or a person to come alongside us and ask us important questions about things. But when you were just describing that about your dad wanting them to, you know, he didn't become a pilot. He wanted them to become pilots. I won't go down that road because that's, in my mind, that's problematic, honestly. I'm glad they're happy, but usually asking your children to live your unlived life is not a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
And does not always end well, because sometimes a kid who has done that will arrive at 55 or 60 and say, you know, I never really wanted to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I ended up doing this because I felt this pressure, and behind the pressure was the love factor, the love and pride factor. I was looking for the smile. I was looking for the joy in my father's eyes, but I wasn't actually becoming the person I wanted to become. And so my destiny became fulfilling the unfulfilled destiny of my father.
It's interesting though. I don't, you know, it's funny. It was actually just when my folks were just here that I really put together that he hadn't made it through fight school. Like, he didn't talk about it a lot at all. It wasn't, so it wasn't, I guess, I don't know how much that dotted line was connected between those two super clearly. And it does feel, I mean, both of them are very, very happy.
Great.
Which is wonderful, but I can totally agree with you. I mean, I've seen that as a parent now today in my own life, right? Seeing these parents that live through their kids in sports, I see it all the time. It makes me crazy because to me, it's so unhealthy. Just because sports can be such a powerful metaphor for life. And so when I see parents living through their children, it always breaks my heart because it is, and I agree with you, good for the kids. But yeah, that's, so that's really, you know, that's interesting.
I'd love to ask a question.
Yeah, Jeff.
As you're talking about parenting, and I do want to highlight this, and I don't have a lot of data to pull on, but just as a casual observer from our last conversation to this conversation, like the RPMs, like sort of the inner RPMs, you seem way more relaxed and at peace. So I wonder if it's some of the self-awareness that you've gained, if it's COVID or whatever, but you just mentioned parenting. And I just wonder, as you've tapped more into your threeness, how has it affected you as a parent? What has it done for you, like in the home?
Yeah. You know, I think I have to be really aware of that driver mindset. and be attentive to that. Because and honor the way my girls, it's 3 girls, 16, 16, 17, the way they show up, what fills them up. Because they're different. I think I have an 8, I think I have a 3, and I think I have maybe a 4, and I think my husband's a 6. So I try to honor the way that they show up. I know that I need to be sensitive to this do it right now mindset. Hey, can you fold the laundry upstairs? And then an hour and a half later, I walk by and it's not folded. Hey, you can watch videos later. Let's knock the laundry out.
Right.
It's noon. I asked you to empty the dishwasher this morning. What's up? I need to be at some level respectful and gentle while also being a parent inside of that journey, So, it's something I've got to probably continue to work on and be aware of.
That's a great question, Anthony. And I want to circle back and just make one observation, and then we have to wrap up, even though I don't want to, but we have to. When you were talking about flight school earlier, and that your dad was talking about, I want you guys to be pilots, and you were wondering, well, why didn't he want me to be a pilot? And I just have to tell you that when you said it, as I looked at your face, and as I considered it myself, what the experience might have been like for you, it made me really sad.
Oh, okay. Why?
Putting myself in your shoes, the questions that might have come to my mind unconsciously, subconsciously, might have been, why aren't you asking me, do you not think I have the same skills? Do you think that I'm not, am I less important to you? That, or are you sexist because you think only boys can be pilots? Is it, you know where I'm going? But I think a competitive, assertive woman and capable woman like you might have been like, all right, now I got to work even harder. Like, it's like, okay, here's one more reason I got to work harder, because what this indicates to me is my dad has more faith in them or more appreciation for their gifts. Why do I feel less visible to my father than my brothers?
Yeah, except I wasn't like, he was at my tennis matches. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep, so he was home a lot when I got home from school and super present. He would play basketball with me in the driveway. I mean, I never felt like I was less visible to him. And I don't know, I guess probably the story I told myself is, I'm not as OCD as those guys. I'm afraid of heights anyway, so it's probably a good thing.
Well, that's more data for me to deal with. Okay. All right. Well, listen, we got to.
And my mom was so amazing and a female leader that I think I leaned into that. And I don't know. It's interesting that you say that, but it did. I guess it didn't make me sad, to be honest.
Okay, great. I'm just making an observation.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they come up for a person later on as being right, but not in the moment. So a couple of just conclusions, as we wrap up this conversation. One is, I agree with Anthony. You seem far more chill. I don't know if that's COVID, 2 margaritas in the morning, or, whatever. I don't know what's going on over there, but a couple of suggestions for you. One is, if you haven't done this already, this would be a fun COVID exercise. And it's going to sound promotional, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
You should I'll send you a couple of copies of The Road Back to You.
Okay. I love that book.
And have everybody in the house read it.
Okay.
Okay. You can be a 3 and assign it.
There we go.
Okay.
That'd be
all
great.
Right. And with a deadline date, please have notes in the margins. Have everybody self-identify what their type is.
Okay.
And then begin to, it will, I bet you, it naturally will become an amazing conversation around the house. oh, this is why, oh, that is why. Or, you know, as you all go on a journey of self-discovery, now you got a group. And you'll suddenly have a vernacular with which you can talk to each other about your interior worlds. I mean, that would be an amazing thing for folks to do. Whether you choose to use my book or another, I'm actually obviously biased toward mine because it's a primer, you know, it's a beginner's book. But I think if all of the family read it and self-identified, conversations. Amazing conversation.
Well, first, thank you for that. That's kind of you. And I absolutely love your book. I mean, I really do. The way that you wrote that book makes it so easy to consume. Like, even my daughters aren't crazy avid readers, but I think I can sell that in, right? And it's a fun read. But it's been powerful. And one little quick nugget on that, you know, sixes sort of have that skepticism a little bit, if I recall. And, you know, a lot of times when my daughter's boyfriend wants to come over, or she wants to go over there, and he asks a lot of questions, or he doubts, or it creates a platform for the conversation around the mindset of a six, the way that they're wired, and that it's coming from a place of love. It's just the wiring at some level. So anyway, it does prove to be so, and that's just one little tiny, so I'm excited to do that. That'll be awesome.
Did you ever read, this is my second assignment, did you ever read Falling Upward, A Spirituality for the Second Half of Life?
No.
Okay, so it's by Richard Rohr.
Okay.
R-O-H-R. Okay. And the title is Falling Upward, A Spirituality for the Two Halves of Life.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's a book I recommend to every three. I recommend it to lots of people, regardless of type, but I think it's particularly poignant for threes. And I do think that if everybody in the family read the book, self-identified, there would be a lot of laughter and conversation and aha moments, epiphanies. Oh, that's why I do that. And that's why when you do that, it makes me anxious or angry, or this is, and I think if it's like my family or Anthony's family, it's a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a lot to do. I've got to go to on-site.
Yep.
I've got the road back to you, and I've got Falling Upward.
Well, listen, when you're ready to go to on-site, which I hope that you do, I'm a good friend of the guy who owns it. His name is Miles Adcox, and I will make a personal connection between the two of you. Okay. Okay. We'll get you to the president, not to the admissions officer. Okay. And then I can't wait to have you on again, because I love this continuing evolving conversation with a three that's sort of got some momentum behind their lives. And tell folks what's going on with you. I just mentioned your latest book, right, which is titled Energy Clock, 3 Simple Steps to Create a Life Full of Energy and Live Your Best Every Day. You've got a podcast, right?
I do, and I've had the pleasure of having you on, which is with Treat.
It was fun.
It was a treat. Yes, Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, and that's been super fun, like what you do. I mean, being able to talk to such interesting people and learn is so cool, and then share those conversations with the world. It's amazing. And then we're doing our Game Changer negotiation training program and continuing to launch a few products here in the future, so folks can kind of stay tuned. But all of that and more is just at mollyfletcher.com.
Wow, great. Molly, we love having you on, and I can't wait till we have some time face-to-face.
I know. I was thinking about that today. I need to come to Nashville.
Let's get past this COVID thing. I want everybody to come to Nashville.
I know. All right.
Well,
you guys are the best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Well, Typology listeners, you know our sign-off. It's the great truth articulated by Oscar Wilde. Be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. Until next time, be well, everybody.